I was sitting behind a marble pillar at my sister's wedding, hidden from view like a shameful secret, when a well-dressed stranger leaned down and whispered, "You're Elena's sister, aren't you? The one she's been lying about." My blood ran cold. Before I could respond, he slid a manila envelope onto my lap and said, "You'll want to open this before the reception ends. Your sister isn't who she's pretending to be, and neither is her groom." What I found inside that envelope didn't just ruin my sister's perfect wedding day. It exposed 20 years of lies, revealed who had really been stealing from our family, and proved that sometimes the person everyone thinks is the victim is actually the villain. If you're watching this right now, drop a comment and let me know where you're viewing from. I need to know I'm not the only one who's been treated like an embarrassment by my own family. My name is Harper Mitchell, and I'm 26 years old. My sister Elena is 29, and for as long as I can remember, she's been the golden child while I've been the disappointment. Elena is beautiful in that effortless way that makes people stop and stare. Perfect blonde hair, blue eyes, the kind of smile that photographs beautifully. I'm ordinary by comparison, brown hair, average height, the kind of person who blends into the background. Our parents made sure I knew the difference. Growing up in Charleston, South Carolina, our family looked perfect from the outside. My father, David, owns a successful insurance company. My mother, Patricia, volunteers at every charity event and hosts elaborate dinner parties. Elena was the daughter they showed off, the one they bragged about at those parties. I was the daughter they explained away with apologetic smiles and vague excuses about me being difficult or going through a phase. Before I tell you about the wedding that changed everything and the stranger who exposed years of lies, hit the like button and subscribe to hear more real stories about family betrayal and the moment everything you thought you knew turned out to be false. These stories might help you see your own family more clearly. The difference between how our parents treated Elena and me started early. When Elena wanted piano lessons, she got them. When I asked for art classes, I was told we couldn't afford extras. When Elena needed a car for her 16th birthday, our parents bought her a brand new Honda. When I turned 16, they gave me Elena's old car, the one she'd damaged in 3 accidents, and told me I should be grateful. Elena went to Duke University on our parents' dime. Full tuition, room and board, spending money, everything. I went to community college on student loans because when I asked for help, my father said, "We've already put one daughter through university. You'll have to figure it out yourself." The pattern was clear and constant. Elena got opportunities, support, and unconditional love. I got criticism, comparison, and constant reminders that I wasn't measuring up. But I tried. God, I tried so hard to make them proud. I graduated with honors from community college, transferred to University of South Carolina, worked 2 jobs to pay my way, and earned my degree in graphic design with a 3.8 GPA. My parents didn't come to my graduation. They were helping Elena move into her new apartment in Charlotte, where she'd just gotten a job at a marketing firm. "We can celebrate your graduation another time," my mother said on the phone. "Elena really needs us right now." They never did celebrate it. After college, I struggled to find work in my field. I ended up taking a job at a coffee shop while freelancing design work on the side. I lived in a tiny studio apartment, drove that same beat-up Honda Elena had damaged, and tried to build a career from nothing. Meanwhile, Elena was thriving in Charlotte, or so everyone thought. She had a beautiful apartment, wore designer clothes, and posted constant updates on social media about her amazing life. What I didn't know until much later was that Elena's perfect life was built on lies and money that wasn't hers. 2 years ago, Elena started dating someone named Justin Hartwell. She brought him home for Thanksgiving, and our parents were immediately smitten. Justin was handsome, charming, came from old Charleston money, and worked in finance. He was exactly the kind of man our parents had always hoped Elena would marry. I met Justin that Thanksgiving and felt something off about him immediately. He was too smooth, too practiced in his charm. When he shook my hand, his smile didn't reach his eyes. When he talked about his work, the details were vague. But everyone else loved him, so I kept my concerns to myself. Elena and Justin got engaged 6 months later. The engagement party was held at our parents' house, a lavish affair with over 100 guests. I wasn't involved in the planning. I found out about the party from a Facebook post and had to call my mother to ask if I was invited. Of course you're invited, Harper, she said, sounding annoyed that I'd asked. But Elena is handling the guest list. She'll send you the details. Elena sent me a text 2 days before the party. Party Saturday at 7. Try to dress nicely for once. I showed up to the engagement party to find that I wasn't seated at the family table. Elena had put me at a table in the back corner with distant cousins I barely knew. When I asked my mother about it, she pulled me aside and whispered, Elena worked very hard on the seating arrangements. Don't make a scene. That was my role in the family. Don't make a scene. Don't cause problems. Don't embarrass Elena or our parents with my presence. The wedding planning was worse. Elena had an unlimited budget, courtesy of our parents. She hired an expensive wedding planner, booked the most exclusive venue in Charleston, ordered a custom designer dress, and planned a destination bachelorette party in Mexico. I was not invited to the bachelorette party. I wasn't asked to be a bridesmaid. I wasn't involved in any aspect of the wedding planning. 3 months before the wedding, my mother called me. Elena would like you to come to a dress fitting. She's picked out a dress for you to wear to the wedding. A bridesmaid dress? I asked, hopeful that maybe I'd been included after all. No, just a dress for you to wear as a guest. She wants the family to coordinate colors. I went to the fitting to discover that Elena had chosen a dress for me that was 2 sizes too small and a muddy brown color that looked terrible with my complexion. When I tried it on and it clearly didn't fit, Elena sighed dramatically. I guess you'll have to lose some weight before the wedding, she said. Or buy your own dress. Just make sure it's in the approved color palette. The seamstress, a kind woman named Rosa, caught my eye and gave me a sympathetic look. After Elena left, Rosa quietly told me, that dress was never going to fit you, honey. She ordered it in the wrong size on purpose. Come back next week without her, and we'll find you something that actually works. I did go back, and Rosa helped me find a simple dress in a shade of taupe that actually looked nice. I paid for it myself, of course. My parents had given Elena a blank check for wedding expenses, but hadn't offered to pay for my dress. 2 weeks before the wedding, I got a call from the wedding planner, a woman named Michelle who sounded uncomfortable. Harper, I need to talk to you about the seating arrangements for the wedding. Okay, I said, already knowing this wouldn't be good news. Elena has requested that you be seated in the back of the ceremony space, behind one of the marble pillars. She says it's because of space constraints and late RSVPs, but I wanted to check with you first because, well, you're her sister. I was silent for a long moment, processing. My sister was literally hiding me behind a pillar at her own wedding. Harper? Are you there? I'm here. It's fine. I'll sit wherever Elena wants me to sit. Are you sure? Because I can push back on this. It seems really inappropriate to seat immediate family behind an obstruction. It's fine, I repeated, though it wasn't fine at all. I don't want to cause problems. The morning of the wedding, I woke up with a knot in my stomach. I put on my taupe dress, did my makeup, and drove to the venue, a historic mansion with beautiful gardens and an elegant ballroom. The ceremony was being held outside in the garden, with the reception following in the ballroom. I arrived early and found Michelle, the wedding planner. She looked at me with genuine sympathy. I'm so sorry about the seating, Harper. For what it's worth, I think it's completely wrong. Where exactly am I sitting? She walked me out to the ceremony space. Rows of white chairs were arranged on either side of an aisle decorated with flowers. At the back, partially hidden by a large marble pillar that was part of the garden's architecture, was a single chair. There, Michelle said quietly. Elena insisted. She said she didn't want you visible in any of the ceremony photos. The words hit me like a physical blow. My sister didn't want me visible in her wedding photos. I wasn't just being excluded. I was being actively hidden. I'm sorry, Michelle said again. If it were up to me, you'd be in the front row where family belongs. I thanked her and took my seat behind the pillar. From that position, I could barely see the altar. I couldn't see the aisle at all. I was completely hidden from view, listening to a ceremony I couldn't actually watch. Guests started arriving, dressed in elegant attire, taking their seats in the main section. I recognized family members, family friends, people who had known me my whole life. None of them saw me tucked behind the pillar. It was as if I didn't exist. The ceremony began. I heard the music start, heard the murmur of guests standing, heard the officiant begin speaking. I caught glimpses through the small gaps between the pillar and the surrounding plants, but I couldn't see anything clearly. I was at my sister's wedding, but I wasn't really there. That's when the stranger appeared. He was in his mid-30s, dressed in an expensive suit, with dark hair and sharp eyes. He walked past the main seating area and came straight toward my hidden spot, which seemed odd since there were no other seats back there. He stopped directly in front of me and leaned down. "You're Elena's sister, aren't you?" "Harper." I nodded, surprised he knew my name. "I thought so. You look like the photos I've seen." He glanced around to make sure no one was watching, then continued in a low voice. "My name is Andrew Castellano. I'm a private investigator, and I've been hired to look into Justin Hartwell's financial activities." My heart started pounding. "What?" "This isn't the place to explain everything, but you need to know something. Your sister isn't who she's pretending to be, and neither is her groom. They've been running a scheme that involves your family's money." He slid a manila envelope onto my lap. "Everything is in here. Bank statements, email transcripts, evidence of fraud. You'll want to open this before the reception ends, because what's in here changes everything." "Why are you telling me this?" I whispered. "Because you're the only person in this family who isn't either complicit or blind. Someone needs to know the truth, and from what I've learned, you're the only one who might actually do something about it." He straightened up. "Read it. Think carefully about what you want to do with the information. My contact information is inside if you have questions." Then he was gone, disappearing into the crowd as quickly as he'd appeared. I sat there holding the envelope, my hands shaking. Around me, the ceremony continued. I heard the officiant pronounce Elena and Justin husband and wife. I heard the applause. I heard the music as they walked back down the aisle. And I sat behind my pillar, hidden from view, holding evidence that was about to blow up my sister's perfect wedding day. I didn't open the envelope right away. I waited until the ceremony ended and guests started moving toward the cocktail hour in the garden. From my hidden position, I carefully opened the envelope and pulled out the contents. Inside were bank statements, printed emails, transaction records, and a typed summary from Andrew Castellano explaining what he'd found. As I read, my stomach turned and my hands shook harder. Justin Hartwell was not who he claimed to be. His family money was fiction. His finance job was real, but he'd been using his position to run an investment scam, convincing clients to invest in fake opportunities and pocketing their money. He was under investigation by the SEC and was likely facing federal charges within the next few months. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was Elena. According to the documents, Elena had known about Justin's scheme for over a year. Not only had she known, she'd been actively helping him. She'd used her marketing skills to create fake company websites and promotional materials for the fake investments. She'd attended meetings with potential victims, playing the role of the successful, trustworthy girlfriend who vouched for Justin's credibility. And she'd been stealing from our family to fund their lifestyle while Justin's scam was being investigated and his accounts were frozen. The bank statements showed regular transfers from our father's business accounts to Elena's personal account, transfers that our father had never authorized. Elena had gotten access to his banking information years ago when she'd helped him set up online banking. She'd been quietly siphoning money ever since, small amounts at first, then increasingly larger sums. Over the past 5 years, Elena had stolen nearly $400,000 from our father's business. The wedding I was sitting at, the one I'd been hidden at behind a pillar, had been paid for with stolen money. Elena's apartment, her designer clothes, her perfect life, all of it had been built on money stolen from our parents and victims of Justin's investment fraud. There was more. The emails showed that Elena had been actively lying about me to our parents for years. She'd told them I was jealous of her success, that I'd been asking her for money constantly, that I'd tried to sabotage her relationship with Justin. None of it was true, but she'd used these lies to ensure that our parents kept me at a distance while she continued stealing from them. One email from Elena to Justin, dated 6 months ago, made me feel sick. "Harper is so pathetic. still working at that coffee shop and pretending to be a designer. Mom and Dad feel sorry for her, which is useful. The more they focus on what a failure she is, the less attention they pay to what we're doing. I'm thinking of telling them she asked me for $10,000 for rent. That should keep them feeling superior to her and not asking questions about the wedding costs. I sat behind that pillar, reading evidence that my sister had not only been stealing from our family, but had been actively sabotaging my relationship with our parents to cover her crimes. Everything I'd thought about my family, about why they treated me differently, was based on lies Elena had carefully constructed. Andrew's summary note at the end explained why he was telling me this. Justin's victims have hired me to build a case before the SEC completes their investigation. One of those victims is your father's business partner, who lost $75,000 in Justin's scheme. He noticed the transfers from your father's account while reviewing business records and asked me to investigate. Your father doesn't know about the theft yet, and neither does your mother. They need to know before this wedding is finalized, because the financial documents they've signed for wedding expenses could make them legally liable for some of Justin's fraud. I'm telling you because I've learned you're the only family member who's been kept in the dark about everything. The choice of what to do with this information is yours. I looked up from the documents. Through the gaps in the foliage around my pillar, I could see the cocktail hour in full swing. Guests were drinking champagne and eating expensive appetizers. Elena was laughing with her bridesmaids, looking radiant in her designer wedding dress. Justin was shaking hands with guests, playing the role of the perfect groom from the perfect family. And my parents were standing with them, beaming with pride at their successful daughter and her wonderful husband, having no idea that they'd been robbed by the very person they loved most. I carefully put the documents back in the envelope. My mind was racing. What was I supposed to do with this information? If I exposed Elena and Justin right now, I would ruin the wedding. I would humiliate my parents in front of everyone they knew. I would become the person who destroyed the family's perfect day. But if I stayed quiet, if I hid behind this pillar and let the wedding continue, my parents would remain victims. Justin would marry into our family legally. Elena would continue stealing. And I would remain the disappointing daughter while my criminal sister was celebrated. I thought about all the years of being treated as less than. All the times my parents had chosen Elena over me. All the moments of exclusion and comparison and being made to feel like I wasn't good enough. And now I knew it had all been manufactured by Elena to protect herself while she committed crimes. I made my decision. I stood up from behind my pillar, smoothed my taupe dress, and walked toward the cocktail hour with the envelope in my hand. I found Michelle, the wedding planner, first. I need to speak with my parents privately right now. It's an emergency. She looked at me with concern. Is everything okay? No. Nothing is okay. Can you get them somewhere private without making a scene? Michelle nodded and quickly moved through the crowd. 5 minutes later, my parents were following her to a small library inside the mansion, confused about why they were being pulled away from the celebration. I was waiting for them. Harper, what's going on? My father asked, annoyed. We need to be out there with Elena and Justin. You need to see something first. I handed him the envelope. Read it. All of it. Harper, this is not the time for whatever drama you're trying to create, my mother started. Mom, please. Just read it. My father opened the envelope and started reading. I watched his face change from annoyance to confusion to shock to fury. My mother read over his shoulder, her hand gradually rising to cover her mouth. This can't be real, my father finally said, his voice shaking. Elena wouldn't. She couldn't. It's all documented, I said quietly. Bank records, emails, everything. Andrew Castellano, the private investigator, is here at the wedding. He can verify all of it. My mother was crying now, mascara running down her face. How long have you known about this? About 20 minutes. A stranger handed me that envelope during the ceremony while I was sitting alone behind a pillar where Elena put me so I wouldn't be visible in the wedding photos. My father looked up at that. What? Elena hid me behind a pillar for the ceremony. She didn't want me in any photos. The wedding planner tried to object, but Elena insisted. I've been back there the whole time, completely out of sight, which is probably why Andrew knew he could talk to me without being seen. My parents looked at each other. Something was shifting in their expressions, some realization dawning that went beyond just the theft and fraud. "We need to talk to Elena," my father said, his voice hard. "Right now." "T. He wedding hasn't happened yet legally," I said. "The reception is just starting. If you're going to stop this, you need to do it before they sign the marriage license." My father stood up, still holding the documents. "Michelle," he called out. The wedding planner appeared immediately. "Get Elena and Justin into this room right now. Tell them there's a problem with the marriage license paperwork that needs immediate attention. Don't let them refuse." Michelle nodded and disappeared. 5 minutes later, Elena and Justin walked into the library, looking irritated. "Dad, we need to sign the license with witnesses during dinner," Elena said. "What's the problem?" My father held up the bank statements. "The problem is that you've been stealing from my business for 5 years. The problem is that your husband is running an investment scam. The problem is that this entire wedding is a fraud being paid for with money you stole from me." Elena's face went white. Justin's expression shifted from confusion to calculation. He was already planning his response, I could see it. "I don't know what Harper has told you," Elena started, "but she's been jealous of me for years. She's been trying to sabotage my relationship with Justin since we got engaged. Whatever lies she's fed you." "These aren't Harper's lies," my father cut her off. "These are bank statements from my business accounts showing regular, unauthorized transfers to your account. These are emails from you to Justin discussing how to keep stealing without getting caught. These are documents from a private investigator hired by one of Justin's fraud victims." "That's ridiculous," Justin said smoothly. "Someone is clearly trying to sabotage us on our wedding day. This is probably a competitor of mine who's jealous of my success. The SEC is investigating you," my father continued. "You've defrauded multiple investors, including my business partner. And my daughter has been helping you while stealing from her own family to support your lifestyle." Elena turned to me, her face twisted with rage. "You did this. You couldn't stand that I was happy, that I was successful, so you ruined my wedding day." "I didn't do anything except sit where you told me to sit," I said calmly. "Behind a pillar, hidden from view, because you didn't want your disappointing sister visible at your perfect wedding. I just happened to be in the right place for someone to tell me the truth." "You're pathetic," Elena spat. "You've always been pathetic. That's why Mom and Dad never loved you as much as me. That's why you've never succeeded at anything. You're a failure and you're bitter about it." "Actually," my mother said quietly, speaking for the first time since Elena and Justin had entered the room, "Harper is the only honest person in this family. And we've treated her terribly while celebrating a daughter who's been robbing us blind." Elena turned to our mother, her expression shifting to manipulative sweetness. "Mom, you can't believe this. I'm your daughter. I love you. I would never hurt you. You stole $400,000 from your father's business," my mother said, her voice getting stronger. "You've been lying to us for years about Harper, telling us she was jealous and asking you for money, when really you were covering up your crimes. You put your sister behind a pillar at your wedding because you saw her as an embarrassment. You're not the daughter I thought you were." Justin tried one more time. "Mr. and Mrs. Mitchell, I think there's been a misunderstanding. If we could just sit down and discuss this rationally." "Get out," my father said. "Both of you. Get out of this venue right now before I call the police and have you arrested." "You can't do that," Elena said, her voice rising to a near scream. "This is my wedding. There are 200 people out there. You'll embarrass the entire family." "You embarrassed this family when you became a thief and a fraud," my father replied. "You have 5 minutes to leave before I walk out there and tell every single guest exactly why this wedding is being canceled." Elena looked at our mother, desperate now. "Mom, please. You can't let him do this." My mother looked at Elena with tears streaming down her face. "I spent years thinking Harper was difficult, thinking she was jealous of you, thinking she was the problem. And all along, you were lying to us, stealing from us, using us. I don't even know who you are." Elena's face hardened. The sweet, manipulative expression disappeared, replaced by cold calculation. "Fine. We'll leave. But you're making a huge mistake. Justin and I have connections. We have lawyers. You'll regret this." "The only thing I regret," my father said, "is that I didn't see who you really were years ago. That I was so blinded by her performance that I neglected the daughter who was actually honest and hardworking. That I let you manipulate me into treating Harper like she didn't matter. Justin grabbed Elena's arm. Come on. We're done here. They left, Elena's white wedding dress trailing behind her, Justin already on his phone probably calling a lawyer. Through the window, I watched them walk through the cocktail hour, grab their personal belongings, and leave through a side exit. A few guests noticed and looked confused, but most were too busy drinking and socializing to realize the bride and groom were leaving their own wedding. After they were gone, my father sank into a chair. I need to make phone calls. My business partner needs to know. The police need to be notified. The SEC needs to be contacted. I'll call the wedding planner, my mother said. The reception needs to be canceled. The guests need to be told something. Wait, I said. Both my parents looked at me. Before you do any of that, I need to know something. Why did you treat me the way you did? Why was I always the disappointment? Why did you believe everything Elena said about me without ever asking if it was true? My parents looked at each other. My father spoke first. Elena was easy. She was charming, she was beautiful, she told us what we wanted to hear. She made us feel like successful parents. And you made us feel like we were failing, my mother added. You were quiet, you were independent. You didn't need us the way Elena seemed to need us. It was easier to focus on Elena, to give her what she wanted, to believe her version of things. That's not an excuse, my father said quickly. We were wrong. We failed you as parents. We believed lies because it was more comfortable than seeing the truth. Harper, my mother said, her voice breaking, I am so sorry. I'm sorry for all of it. For believing Elena, for not supporting you, for putting you behind a pillar at your own sister's wedding. For making you feel like you didn't matter when you were the only one with integrity. I wanted to accept their apology immediately, to say it was all okay now. But it wasn't okay. Years of hurt don't disappear with one apology. I need time, I said. I need to think about what our relationship looks like going forward. But right now, you have a room full of guests who need to be told that the wedding is off, and you have authorities who need to be notified about fraud. My father nodded. Will you stay? While we handle this. I thought about it. Part of me wanted to leave, to walk out of this venue and never look back. But another part of me wanted to see this through, to be present for the consequences of Elena's actions. I'll stay, I said. What followed was one of the most awkward situations I'd ever witnessed. My father and mother addressed the guests, explaining that the wedding had been called off due to circumstances they couldn't discuss publicly. Some guests were understanding, some were confused, and some were clearly annoyed at having their evening ruined. But they all eventually left, taking their gifts and their curiosity with them. Andrew Castellano, the private investigator, stayed behind to speak with my father and provide additional documentation. He explained that he'd been tracking Justin's fraud for 3 months and had only recently discovered Elena's involvement when he'd traced the source of money they'd been using. I'm sorry this happened on your daughter's wedding day, Andrew said to my parents. But if they'd actually gotten married and signed that license, it would have complicated the legal situation significantly. Your financial liability for some of Justin's fraud could have been much worse. Thank you for telling Harper, my mother said. If you'd gone straight to us, we might not have believed it. We've been too willing to believe Elena for too long. After Andrew left, after the venue was empty and the vendors had been paid and sent home, my parents and I sat together in that library. The three of us, surrounded by the ruins of what was supposed to be Elena's perfect day. What happens now? I asked. Now I call the police, my father said. I report the theft from my business. I provide all the evidence Andrew gave us. Elena and Justin will likely be arrested within the next few days. And then they face the legal consequences of what they've done. Elena could go to prison, Harper. She's committed multiple felonies. I know, I said. And I did know. Part of me felt sad about it, because despite everything, Elena was still my sister. But a larger part of me felt relieved that finally, there would be consequences for her actions. My mother reached across and took my hand. I know I have no right to ask this after how we've treated you, but would you be willing to have dinner with us sometime? To talk? To maybe start rebuilding some kind of relationship? I looked at my parents, really looked at them, maybe for the first time in years. They looked old suddenly, tired and broken by the revelation that their perfect daughter was a criminal. Maybe, I said. But it can't go back to how it was. You can't treat me like I don't matter. You can't believe the worst about me without asking questions. You can't put one child on a pedestal and stick the other one behind a pillar. Never again, my father promised. Harper, you are the child we should have been celebrating all along. You worked hard, you were honest, you built a life without asking us for anything. And we were too blind to see it. 3 days later, Elena and Justin were arrested. Elena was charged with embezzlement, fraud, and identity theft. Justin faced federal charges for securities fraud and wire fraud. The news spread through Charleston society like wildfire. The golden couple who'd been the envy of everyone were actually criminals who'd been stealing from their own families and defrauding investors. I didn't take pleasure in Elena's downfall exactly, but I did feel a sense of justice. For the first time in my life, there were real consequences for her actions. She couldn't charm her way out. She couldn't manipulate our parents into fixing it. She had to face what she'd done. My parents asked me to come to dinner the following week. I almost said no, but something made me agree. We met at a quiet restaurant, just the three of us, and for the first time I could remember, we had an honest conversation. We've hired lawyers to try to recover what Elena stole, my father told me. But most of it is gone, spent on her lifestyle and this wedding that never happened. I'm sorry, I said, and I meant it. We're meeting with a therapist, my mother added, to try to understand why we treated you the way we did, why we enabled Elena for so long. We want to do better, Harper. We want to actually be the parents you deserved. That's going to take time, I said. Years of hurt don't disappear because you're finally seeing the truth. We know, my father said. But we're willing to put in the time if you're willing to give us the chance. I thought about it. I could walk away from them completely, cut them out of my life the way they'd effectively cut me out of theirs for years. It would be justified. But I also thought about my grandfather Raymond from the previous story, about how he'd never given up on me even when my parents had abandoned me. Maybe some relationships were worth fighting for, even if they required starting over from scratch. Okay, I said. We can try. But on my terms. With honesty. With equal treatment. With respect. Deal, they both said. 6 months later, I was sitting in a coffee shop working on a design project when Andrew Castellano walked in. He spotted me and came over. Mind if I join you? He asked. Go ahead. He sat down with his coffee. I wanted you to know that Justin took a plea deal. He's going to prison for 7 years. Elena is still fighting the charges, but her lawyer says she'll likely get 3 to 5 years. Thanks for telling me. I also wanted to say I'm sorry. I know that handing you that envelope at the wedding was harsh. But someone needed to know the truth, and you were the only person in that family who wasn't either stealing or being stolen from. You were right to tell me, I said. If you hadn't, my parents would have remained victims. Elena would have continued stealing. And I would have stayed the disappointing daughter while my criminal sister was celebrated. Andrew nodded. How are things with your parents now? Better. Not perfect, but better. They're actually treating me like a daughter instead of an inconvenience. They're asking about my work, my life, my dreams. It's weird, actually, having their attention and support. You deserve it. I'm starting to believe that. 1 year after the wedding that never happened, my father called me with news. Harper, I need to tell you something. I've been reviewing my business finances, getting everything back in order after what Elena did. And I realized something. All those years when I told you I couldn't help with your college tuition, when I said we'd already put one daughter through university, that was a lie Elena had convinced me to tell you. What? We had the money. We could have easily paid for your education. But Elena told us you'd come to her saying you wanted to do it independently, that accepting money from us would make you feel like a failure. She said you'd asked her to tell us to let you handle it yourself. I believed her, so I never offered. And you never asked because you thought we genuinely couldn't afford it. I sat down, processing this. So I took on all that student loan debt because of another one of Elena's lies? Yes. And Harper, I'm so sorry. I should have talked to you directly instead of believing what Elena told me. I should have insisted on helping. I'm going to pay off your student loans, all of them. It won't make up for the years you struggled, but it's something. Dad, you don't have to. Yes, I do. I owe you this. I owe you so much more than this. 2 weeks later, my student loans were paid in full. $50,000 of debt gone. I cried when I saw the zero balance, not just because of the financial freedom, but because it felt like my father was finally seeing me, finally trying to make things right. My relationship with my parents continued to improve slowly. We had dinner together regularly. They came to see my design work when I had pieces in a local art show. They asked about my dating life without comparing me to Elena's failed relationship. They were trying, genuinely trying, to be better. I never spoke to Elena again. She sent me a letter from jail, trying to apologize and asking me to visit. I read the letter once and threw it away. Some relationships are too broken to fix, and some people don't deserve your forgiveness just because they're family. The story of what happened at Elena's wedding spread through Charleston society. At first, I was embarrassed by the attention. But then something unexpected happened. Other people started reaching out to me, people who'd also been the overlooked child, the disappointing sibling, the family member stuck behind the pillar while everyone else was celebrated. They shared their stories with me, and I realized I wasn't alone. There were dozens of us, people who'd spent years being compared to golden child siblings, who'd been blamed for being jealous when they were actually being abused, who'd been gaslighted into thinking their family's cruel treatment was somehow their own fault. I started a blog about my experience, not to shame my family, but to help others who were going through similar situations. I wrote about the signs of a golden child and scapegoat dynamic, about how to recognize when family members are manipulating you, about setting boundaries with toxic relatives. The blog grew quickly, and I started getting messages from people all over the country thanking me for putting their experiences into words. One message in particular stood out. It was from a woman named Teresa who wrote, "I was seated behind a pillar at my brother's wedding too." Literally. They didn't want me in the photos because I'm overweight and they thought I'd ruin the aesthetic. Reading your story made me realize that's not normal, that's abuse. Thank you for helping me see that I'm not the problem. They are. I responded to Teresa and we became friends. She lived in Atlanta and we started video chatting regularly, supporting each other as we both worked on healing from our family's mistreatment. Through her, I met other people with similar stories, and gradually I built a chosen family of people who understood what it was like to be treated as less than by the people who were supposed to love you most. 18 months after the failed wedding, I was at my parents' house for dinner when my father brought up Elena. She's getting out on parole next month. She served 2 years of her 3-year sentence. Okay, I said carefully, not sure where this was going. She wants to have a family meeting when she gets out. She says she's been doing therapy in prison, that she understands now what she did wrong, that she wants to make amends. And what did you tell her? I told her that's up to you. Your mother and I are willing to see her, to hear what she has to say. But we won't do it without you present, and we won't do it at all if you're not comfortable. I thought about it for a long time. Part of me wanted to refuse, to keep Elena out of my life permanently. But another part of me was curious. Had she actually changed? Did she genuinely understand the harm she'd caused? Or was this just another manipulation? I'll meet with her, I said finally. But on my terms. In a public place, with a time limit. And if at any point I feel like she's manipulating or lying, I'm leaving. That's fair, my mother said. We'll set it up. The meeting was arranged for a coffee shop near my apartment. Elena walked in looking very different from the glamorous woman she'd been at her failed wedding. Prison had stripped away the designer clothes and perfect makeup. She looked tired, older, more real somehow. She sat down across from me, our parents on either side. For a long moment, nobody spoke. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with me," Elena finally said. "I know I don't deserve your time after what I did." "You're right, you don't," I agreed. "So why are we here?" "Because I owe you an apology. A real one. Not the manipulative kind I used to give when I was trying to get out of trouble." She took a deep breath. "Harper, I spent our entire childhood and adult life making you the scapegoat for my own insecurities and failures. I was jealous of you." "Jealous of me?" I couldn't keep the disbelief out of my voice. "You had everything. You were the favorite. You got all the support and opportunities." "I had things," Elena corrected. "But you had something I could never have. You had integrity. You worked hard for everything you earned. People respected you because you were genuinely good at what you did, not because you were charming or manipulative. And I hated that about you because it reminded me that I was hollow inside. She looked at our parents. Mom, Dad, I manipulated you for years. I told you lies about Harper because I needed you to see her as the problem so you wouldn't look too closely at me. Every time you chose me over her, every time you believed my lies, every time you made her feel small, that was my doing. I manufactured all of it. We're not blameless, our father said. We chose to believe you. We chose to treat Harper differently. That's on us. But I made it easy for you to make those choices, Elena said. I knew exactly what to say to keep you focused on my successes and Harper's supposed failures. And Harper, the wedding, putting you behind that pillar, that was the culmination of years of treating you as an inconvenience to be hidden away. I'm ashamed of who I was. Are you apologizing because you mean it, or because it looks good for your parole? I asked bluntly. Honestly, it started as the second one. My therapist in prison told me I needed to make amends as part of my rehabilitation. So at first, I was just going through the motions, saying what I thought people wanted to hear. But then she made me really examine my behavior, really look at what I'd done to you, and something broke open in me. The guilt was crushing. Still is. She pulled out a notebook. I've been writing down every memory I have of mistreating you, every lie I told, every time I manipulated our parents against you. There are over 200 entries in here. 200 documented times I deliberately hurt you. And those are just the ones I remember. I took the notebook and flipped through it. Page after page of Elena's handwriting, detailing specific incidents. The time she told our parents I'd stolen money from her purse when actually she'd spent it on drugs. The time she convinced them I was lying about getting into honor society because she couldn't stand me succeeding at something. The time she told them I'd said terrible things about Mom when I'd actually praised her. Why are you showing me this? I asked. Because you deserve to know the truth about everything. And because I can't move forward until I've been completely honest about my past. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Harper. I don't deserve that. I'm just asking you to know that I see what I did, I understand how wrong it was, and I'm committed to never being that person again. We talked for another hour. Elena explained her time in prison, the therapy that had forced her to confront her narcissistic behaviors, the slow and painful process of actually developing empathy for the first time in her life. She talked about her relationship with Justin, admitting that they'd enabled each other's worst qualities and built a life on lies and theft. Justin and I are done, she said. Even if we weren't both facing legal consequences, I wouldn't want him back. I finally understand that our relationship was toxic. We brought out the absolute worst in each other. As the meeting wound down, Elena looked at me one more time. I know you probably won't want a relationship with me going forward. I understand that. But I want you to know that you deserved better than what I gave you. You deserved a sister who supported you, who celebrated your successes, who treated you with respect. I wasn't that sister, and I'm sorry. I didn't respond immediately. I needed time to process everything she'd said, to decide if I believed her transformation was genuine or just another manipulation. I need to think about all of this, I finally said. I'm not ready to forgive you. I might never be ready to forgive you. But I appreciate that you're at least being honest for once. That's more than I deserve, Elena said. We left the coffee shop going in different directions. My parents asked if I was okay, if I wanted to talk about what Elena had said. I told them I needed some time alone to think. Over the next few weeks, I found myself thinking about Elena constantly. I read through her notebook multiple times, seeing in writing all the ways she'd sabotaged me over the years. It was validating in a strange way, proof that I hadn't been crazy or oversensitive, that there really had been a calculated campaign to make me look bad. But I also thought about change, about whether people could genuinely transform, about whether family relationships could be rebuilt after such profound betrayal. I didn't have easy answers. 3 months after the coffee shop meeting, Elena called me. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Harper, I'm not calling to ask for anything, she said immediately. I just wanted you to know that I got a job. It's nothing glamorous, just working at a nonprofit that helps formerly incarcerated people find employment. But it's honest work, and I'm good at it. I'm using my marketing skills to help people instead of to defraud them. That's good, I said, meaning it. I also wanted to tell you that I started a restitution fund. I'm putting 20% of every paycheck toward paying back the money I stole from Dad's business. It's going to take me years, maybe decades, but I'm committed to making it right. Elena, that's actually really impressive. It's the least I can do. Anyway, I'm not asking to be part of your life. I just wanted you to know that I'm trying to become someone who deserves to be called your sister, even if I never get there. After she hung up, I sat with my phone in my hand for a long time. Elena was actually doing the work. Not just talking about change, but actively changing her behavior and making amends. It didn't erase the past, but it was something. 2 years after the wedding that never happened, I was featured in a magazine article about my design work and my blog about family dynamics. The article mentioned my story briefly, how I'd been the overlooked sister who'd discovered her siblings' crimes at a wedding where she'd been hidden behind a pillar. After the article came out, I got a message from Michelle, the wedding planner who'd been so kind to me. "Harper, I just read your article. I wanted you to know that I quit doing weddings after Elena's disaster. It made me realize how often I was helping families put on performances rather than celebrations of genuine love. I'm now an event planner for nonprofits and community organizations. Your story changed my career path, and I'm grateful for it." I also heard from Rosa, the seamstress who'd helped me find a dress when Elena had deliberately ordered the wrong size. "I always suspected Elena was cruel to you," Rosa wrote. "I'm glad you found your strength and exposed the truth. You deserved so much better." These messages from people who'd witnessed my family's dysfunction reminded me that I hadn't been imagining things, that other people had seen the mistreatment and had wanted to help but hadn't known how. My parents continued to make efforts to repair our relationship. They funded my first solo art show, not because I asked, but because they wanted to support my work. They introduced me to their friends as our daughter the designer, with genuine pride in their voices. They asked about my life, my dreams, my feelings, things they'd never bothered with before. It still wasn't perfect. There were moments when I caught them falling into old patterns, when they started to make excuses for Elena or minimize what she'd done. But now when I called them out on it, they listened and corrected themselves. They were trying, genuinely trying, to be better parents. On the 3rd anniversary of the failed wedding, I did something I never thought I'd do. I called Elena and asked if she wanted to have coffee. We met at the same coffee shop where we'd had the family meeting. She looked healthier now, more stable, like someone who'd found solid ground after years of chaos. "I've been reading your blog," she said after we'd ordered. "The things you write about golden child dynamics, about scapegoating, about family abuse, I see myself in all of it." I was textbook terrible. "You were," I agreed. "But you're also doing the work to change." "I've been watching from a distance. The restitution payments, the nonprofit work, the therapy you're still doing. That's real change. Does that mean you're willing to have some kind of relationship with me?" "Maybe," I said carefully. "Not the relationship we had before. That was poisonous. But maybe we could build something new. Something honest. Something where we're actually sisters instead of rivals." "I'd like that," Elena said, tears in her eyes. "Harper, I know I'll never be able to fully make up for what I did to you. But I want you to know that you're the person I admire most in this family. You survived my abuse and our parents' neglect, and you still became kind and successful and honest. You're who I'm trying to become." We talked for 2 hours, really talked, maybe for the first time in our lives. We discussed our childhoods from different perspectives, the ways our parents' favoritism had damaged both of us in different ways. Elena admitted that being the golden child had been its own prison, that she'd felt constant pressure to be perfect and had responded by becoming a fraud rather than admitting vulnerability. "I envied your freedom," she said. "You were allowed to fail because expectations for you were lower." That sounds terrible to say, but it's true. I had to maintain this perfect image at all times, and the pressure of that broke something in me. "That doesn't excuse what you did," I said. "I know. I'm not making excuses. I'm just trying to explain how I got so twisted inside that I thought treating you terribly was acceptable." As we said goodbye, Elena hugged me. It was awkward at first. We hadn't hugged in years, but then it felt real. Like maybe, just maybe, we could eventually become actual sisters. Now, for years after sitting behind that pillar at a wedding that never happened, my life looks completely different. I run my own successful design firm. My blog about family dynamics has helped thousands of people recognize and escape toxic family situations. My relationship with my parents is imperfect but genuine. And my relationship with Elena is slowly, carefully being rebuilt on a foundation of honesty rather than lies. I still think about that moment sometimes, sitting hidden behind a pillar while a stranger handed me an envelope that would change everything. If Andrew Castellano hadn't found me that day, if he'd gone straight to my parents or waited until after the wedding, everything would be different. Elena would have married Justin. The theft and fraud would have continued. And I would still be the disappointing daughter while my criminal sister was celebrated. But he did find me. And I did open that envelope. And I did make the choice to expose the truth even though it meant ruining my sister's wedding and humiliating my family in front of Charleston society. Some people have told me I should have kept quiet, that I should have waited until after the wedding to reveal what I knew, that family should protect family even when they're doing wrong. But I disagree. Real family doesn't mean protecting abusers and criminals. Real family means telling the truth even when it's hard, holding people accountable for their actions, and refusing to participate in lies. The lesson I learned from being hidden behind that pillar is simple but powerful. Sometimes the person everyone is hiding is the only one seeing clearly. Sometimes being excluded from the performance means you're the only one who can see it for what it really is. And sometimes the greatest gift you can give your family is refusing to participate in their dysfunction. My sister made me sit alone behind a pillar at her wedding because she was ashamed of me, because she'd spent years convincing everyone I was a failure and a disappointment. But that pillar became the place where truth found me, where a stranger could approach without being seen, where I could read evidence of crimes without anyone knowing. Elena tried to hide me, but in doing so, she put me in the exact position I needed to be in to finally see everything clearly and expose the lies she'd built her life on. She tried to make me invisible, and instead she made me the most important person at that wedding, the only one who could stop a fraud from being legally sealed through marriage. Have you ever been treated like the family embarrassment while a toxic sibling was celebrated? Have you ever discovered that the golden child in your family was actually the problem all along? Have you ever been literally or figuratively hidden behind a pillar while someone else got all the attention and praise? Share your stories in the comments below. I want to hear how you survived being scapegoated and how you found your way to the truth. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more real stories about exposing family dysfunction and finding your strength when everyone else wants you to stay quiet. Share this video with someone who's been made to feel invisible by their own family. Thank you for watching, and remember, being hidden behind the pillar doesn't mean you don't matter. Sometimes it means you're the only one who can see the truth clearly enough to do something about it.